Good afternoon. This is Laura at Yes MLS, and this class webinar is to go over CMA and some tips and tricks within the process of CMA. My goal is to show you what the system can do. I am not the expert on what and what to look for and adjustment values to make, but I can show you what our system can help you do working through the system. So first I want to point out that we do record the webinars and we are posting them under the Help tab. So if you've missed any or you want to go back through and listen to different ones, if you go to Help here at the top right, and then as you move down on the left-hand side, we've got Yes MLS webinar videos. And here we've got the different categories that we teach. And if you click on any of those, you'll see the date and who the instructor was. And I would recommend listening to different teachers just because we all do the class a little bit differently and we share just maybe a little different information. All right, so for CMAs, you want to list a property, let's say, and you want to get some information on the property that you're going to find comps for. I think a quick, easy way to find that is to go to search and choose public record. So with search public record, you can pull up that address and find some tax information and property history. The address that I'm going to work with today is 600 Crestview Drive. And as I search for that property, I see one in Bay Village. Here's the owner. And if I click on the parcel ID, I get a little bit of tax data in there. So that's going to tell me who owns it, some property information. It's going to show an estimated value, just like we see in Realist. So as I scroll through this page, I'll get things like square footage, in case that's not listed anywhere else. I see bedrooms, bathrooms, style, garage, basement info, things like that. And here at the bottom, it comes up with what it calls an AVM, which is an estimated valuation model. Those are similar to Zillow, but we think these are a little better only because they are using MLS and tax data. And Anya, we're not still on mute. You should be able to hear me because I did unmute. And please let me know, can somebody, one person, just answer, and you don't know who you are. So can somebody just answer yes that you can hear me in the remarks? Okay, perfect, thank you, then I know it's working. So at any rate, the estimated value is based on an algorithm that they have, and this is pretty low. They're 62% confident that this will sell within 16% of the value that it came up with here, this 352. And the 408.9 and 296.1 are the 16% higher and lower than that amount. The other piece I like to get out of this public record view, and this is the same as tax, Realist tax actually, and it was just easy enough to go to search and public record to find it. But the piece I like to look at is this last listing to see, was it ever in the MLS before? And this one was back in 2006, and I can capture this listing number because I want to be able to use that to pull it in to a report a little bit later. So I'm going to jot that listing number down, or I can even copy it, and I'll be using that in a little while. So the first thing I like to do is get that information. Next, I want to run just a quick CMA by doing a search and pull up like properties. So I know that this one was a single family colonial style home, and I want to find what my competition is by looking for active, and then what recently sold, so what my comps are, and in the last 6 months. Notice that that did automatically put 0 to 180 days. I can change that to whatever I want, but the default is 6 months back. I'm going to stick with that for now. So single family, colonial, and what I might do is a map search here. I want to find properties that are nearby my house. So if I use 600 Crestview, and as I start typing that, it's going to come up with, did you mean and it finds 600 Crestview in Bay Village. So I can choose that and it automatically selects it. I know that it did because it put map area selected in red here up above. The other thing I can do is ask for a different distance. I noticed down here at the bottom that I only have one match, so I need to go a little bit further out. And that's a little better. Now I only want to stay in Bay Village, so I can scroll through this list and choose just Bay Village, so I'm not crossing over different community borders, different city or zip code borders. All right, so I have 27 matches at this point. I can go to my results and take a look at those properties. The hardest part, I always say, is looking at these and making sure they're good comps. So if I click on the parcel ID, I'm sorry, the listing number, I can look at this listing, scroll through, see if it looks like my property. I can look at the photos and see if it looks similar to mine inside. And if I like it, I can check it. And I can do that for all of these properties. If I want to go back to my single line display, I've got single line display here, and it takes me back to the one line grid. If I wanted everything, I can click all. And if I choose quick CMA, that is going to take me to a nice little spreadsheet looking document. Notice mine, I'm in Firefox, so it downloads it and puts it in my download folder or download icon here at the top right. And I can open that property. And here we have a nice little summary of what I call, looks like an Excel spreadsheet. And you've got different columns here. What I like to look at in this layout is these columns over here on the right, your original list price, your list price, and your sold price. And then what are you getting versus what you asked for? So we like to see these that are 100%. And as you scroll down, it gives you a summary at the bottom, high, low, median, average, and then this average, you're getting about 96, almost 97% of your asking price, and they're on the market about somewhere between 60 and 70 days on market versus cumulative. I will point out here that you need to be a little careful that you pay attention to the original list price, the list price at time of sale, and your sold price. So this one looks like it sold for 95.8% of asking price, but in reality it is quite a bit less than that because it had an original list price of $650. When it sold, it was $599, $999, and it sold for $575. So that's not a true depiction of its original list price. Its sales price is a percent of last listing price. So just a heads up there. So if you wanted, this is a PDF file. You could print this. You could save it, but I don't think that's the best way to go. I'll show you another way to email that. But I like this layout. And then what I also might do is, if I want to send that layout along with another report called the 3-up comparison, I can come down to my print button here at the bottom. And when I choose print, as I look towards the bottom of the list, I've got a one-line CMA, which is what we just did. And I also have a 3-up comparison, which is a really nice little report that gives you information across different properties along with the photos. So notice I have a print to PDF, but I also have an email PDF here. That is a really nice way to be able to send these reports through the system to your customers. I want to show it to you first, but then know that you can choose to email that, and it works very easily as if you were sending listings to your customer. It lets you quickly pick out the person in your list. So again, I'm in Firefox and it downloads it here at the top right. If you are in Chrome, it's going to put it down at the bottom left as a file to open. So I will go ahead and open that report. So we already saw this one. That was our 3-up comparison. I'm sorry, that was our quick CMA. And that was a couple pages. And then what you get next is this 3-up comparison that gives you the comps with a photo. And as you scroll through it, it's a nice little layout of data that you can share and compare easily looking at those different properties. And if I go down, it's the next 3. And it's going to tell you here the status that they're in, and then just a lot of good data to compare. And you just keep going. So that was through running a search, clicking the print button, and grabbing these 2 reports down here under the PDF. And if you choose to email those, you can either choose to pick somebody out of your list of people, or you can click the 2 button and see everybody in there. Or you can type it to somebody who's not a contact. So that is a quick, easy way to get those nice little reports to your customers. And it didn't take a whole lot of time. It was basically just running a map search and choosing the properties you want in that quick CMA. I want to use that same list of results. So I'm going to go back to my recent searches, which is here on the top right. And I want to pull up that one that I just ran. And I get those lists of properties. But this time I want to select just a couple of them, not all of them. And I want to use the more robust CMA called this, we call it the CMA package. So I'm going to check just a handful of listings that I want to use. Go down here. And this time I want to use CMA button at the bottom. So not the quick CMA, but the one that just says CMA here. And that is going to pull me into a wizard. And this wizard lets me go through each of these tabs and create this CMA. The idea is that you assign it to a customer. So I can create somebody new, or I can pick them out of my drop-down list. I'll create new. Anything in yellow is required, so we need first name, last name, and email address. If I wanted to put the couple's name, I could do both of their names in the first name box, and then I could use multiple email addresses by typing a comma, and we would get, we can use up to 5. So I'll save that, and I like to enter in the description the property's address, because their name is going to show up as my contact, but I want to know what property I'm working with when I look at this in my list of CMAs. So I am going to enter the address here just so that I can easily find it later. Note down here that it says that this will be saved for 180 days after you last modified it. So the system will store it, but if you need it for more than 180 days, at the end of this, I would recommend that you save it on your computer. Otherwise, if you don't touch it again for 6 months, it will just drop off the system. Okay. And it's good if you spell it right, because then it looks better in your list. All right, so now we've got this wizard to go through. And if I click on pages, these are the predefined pages that we give you. And you are welcome to use them. You can remove any. If you wanted to get rid of something, you click it and choose the X over here to the right. If I want to add some documents, I've got a list of all the different things I can add here on the left-hand side. I want to show you the static reports. So I could pick and choose these one at a time, and it would just add them. Or if I click the header for this section, it actually moves all of them all at once. So I would recommend, as you work through the CMA wizard, that you pull everything over from the left-hand side and put it over on the right-hand side, just to see which ones you like the best. And then at the bottom here, we've got a choice to say set as default. So once you pick the reports that you like best, set it as your default, and moving forward, you won't have to pick them each time. They'll be set and the next time you build a CMA, you'll have the reports that you want included. Notice I've got manage custom pages here at the bottom left. You will say, if you have not added any, yours might say add custom pages or upload custom pages. This allows you to bring in your own forms. So for example, if you have a company mission statement, or if you wanted to include a net sheet for this one customer, or there's a set of statistics that you want to include for this market, if you have them saved as a PDF, you can come to Manage Custom Pages. You can browse here at the bottom. You can browse and go find those PDFs and upload them. I have a couple here that I can work from. If you don't like the order that they're in, you can move them up or down. You can preview those and take a look and see what it is. I'll just click that mission statement just to show you an example. That's not a very good example because it's blank, but that would, if I had some text in there, it would be a nice example of what you could include. So if you keep that in mind, if you have your own personal documents that you want a part of this CMA, you can add them as long as they're in a PDF format. And then if you want to include them, they become available in the drop-down list under My Custom Pages, and you can add them just like you did any other form. Okay, next we have the tab at the top called Subject Property. So this lets us bring in our property that we're going to list. The downside of that 3-up comparison that we looked at earlier was that it only had comp properties. It did not have our subject property. And it's nice to have our subject so we can compare easily moving across those pages. So you have some options here. You could pull them in. I'm sorry, you could type the information manually. That's a little cumbersome. You would have to type in the address and property information such as bedrooms and bathrooms. You could fill it from an MLS number. So if it was previously listed, we could type that listing number here and fill it in. Or we could get the parcel ID and fill that information in, and it would gather data from county auditor. You could go search for something to in the MLS, or you could go search from public record. I already have both pieces of information. I have an old listing number and I have a parcel ID. I only want to use the listing number. So I grab that listing number and pull it in here and choose fill. What that does is it gets the data off of that listing that I asked for and it fills it in for me. So I could scroll through here, and if there's anything that I know that has changed, I can update it. What I certainly want to get rid of is this section here called required and general. This is old data back from 2006, and I want to get rid of the fact that it was sold and for how much. I want that to not be part of this record. The other thing I can do is I can add fields. So if there was something on here that I didn't like, or I'm sorry, that I liked, if there was something on the listing that I liked, but it wasn't part of this layout, I can come to the bottom and choose to add it. If it's a field that's on my listing, I can link it to Matrix so it grabs the data on my listing and it grabs the information on all of the comps. So I might want taxes here. I might want to pull in annual taxes. So it filled that in from the listing, and it also did that on all of my comps. Now, I might actually not want the old taxes, but I want the recent taxes. I didn't write that down, so I need to go search for that. I don't want to lose what I'm doing in my CMA. So another little tip that I like to show here is I can right-click on my Home tab and open a new link in my browser. So now I've got the CMA here, but I've got another session working over here. So now I can leave my CMA alone, pop out of there for a second, and go look up the tax value the current taxes, and I already have that. I actually ran that when I did that public record search. So again, that was search public record, and current taxes instead of the 5,500 are a little higher than that. They're 8,271. So I'll come back into my CMA and type 8,271 here. And I might want to make that pretty with a $sign and a comma. So again, to get another window opened as you're working in something in MLS, you right click on the home tab and choose open link and new tab. And now I have even 3 different screens going. You just have to kind of know what you're working on in which tab. Okay, so now, just another example of this, if I wanted to add a field, but I wanted to include something that wasn't in the MLS, so I don't want to link it to the matrix field, I could type my label. So I'll just call this condition. It's not a field in MLS, it's just something I want to include on my listing. And I could then type words in here, but if I do it for mine, nothing's going to be filled in for the different comps. I'd have to fill those in myself. And I might just say it's updated and it has new flooring. All right. So now I've got a picture, I've got my property information. I want to go next to the cover sheet. That is pretty basic. You have a few options there, but it's pulling the photo in. It's giving my agent information that I have filled in. I might include the address here again. And next I'll go to the comparables. So with the comps, it's showing the ones that I chose. If I wanted to at this point, I could add some from the MLS. If I knew one sold recently that it wasn't included here, I could go add that. Another great newer feature is add from tax. So if I knew something sold by owner, or if I wanted to see if something sold by owner and include that in my comp report, I can choose add from tax right here. And when I choose add from tax, I can then either look for properties on a certain street or an address. I could do that same map search. Let's try that again. 600 Crestview, Bay Village. When I click out of that, it gives me this suggestion. And again, it found properties because it says map area selected. In this example, it is using 6 months back as part of the tax record search. So again, this is going to be any transfer from tax records, not just those that sold within the MLS. Now it only found 2. I am going to change that and make it a little bit bigger. So I get a lot more. And now I want to go to those results. So what you want to pay attention to here is this MLS status. You see that these were sold, they have a red bubble and indicate they were sold, and that's through the MLS. But these top ones did not sell through the MLS. These were transfers outside of that. So if I wanted to include some of those, I could. So I can check this apple blossom one. I might want to check the Perry one, and I want to add those to my CMA. So a nice, easy way to combine MLS data and tax record is to use that add listings from tax or from a search. And now you've got those as part of this process. So here are the tax ones. If I want to see the ones that were listed in the MLS, I can say show listing comparables here at the top, and I can work between those 2 sections. All right, when I go to the map tab, that is going to show me the different properties. The red ones are those that sold through the MLS. The purple ones are those that sold through or that were not through the MLS but were recorded at the auditor level. And the blue bubble is my subject property. And then here they are listed on the right-hand side. Next, I want the adjustments tab. This one, you know, use caution with this. There is no magic book that gives you values. This is really just going to be based on your expertise in the market. This is really more of an appraiser tool, but some agents do use it. The idea is you're given your properties. You can scroll through, and if you need to make an adjustment, because your comp is different than this, I'm sorry, your subject property is different from the comps, you have the ability to make sometimes a blanket adjustment, and sometimes you have to do it on an individual basis, such as using the fields here. So, for example, my house has just 3 bedrooms. All of these have something else. I am completely making up a number. And I'm going to say that a bedroom in this city is worth $3,500. Totally a made up price. Please don't use that. If you claim that Laura said a bedroom was $3,500, I can't deny it now because it's recorded, but that is my get out of jail card free. This is just a made up number. So it makes an adjustment and says, well, this is your comp, and if you, this is your subject property, and if your comp were more like your subject property, we would have to deduct $3,500 to make it more like a 3-bedroom house versus a 4 or a 5, and so on. Same works for bathrooms. If I were to say that a full bath was worth $1,000, it's going to adjust it, and in this case, this property only had 1 full bath. It needs to bring that property up so it's more like my property. So the idea is you either add or subtract based on what the comp has versus what you have, and you want to make them more alike. So again, for half baths, if I say those are worth $500, totally made up value there, it's going to make that blanket adjustment. Now, as you scroll through, you're going to see sometimes, and many of the times, it does not have a block at the top where you can type in that adjustment. You'll have to do that manually. So for example, fireplaces. If you say that a fireplace is worth $300, I need to reduce this property by $300 because it has 2 and mine only has 1. So I would do that for all of these that have 2. I would reduce it by $300. All right, the other thing you could do is instead of looking at it in this grid layout, you can look at it in detail mode. So if I choose that, I'm going to have my subject property and the comps. And now I can go through and compare one versus the other and make those adjustments. And I can say next and keep going. And remember that field I asked for at the bottom about condition and annual taxes? Annual taxes, it pulled from the MLS, but condition, it did not. I would have to type in information if I wanted to, based on that field that I brought into the wizard here. Next, we have the pricing tab, and this one has some information that you can add data to. So for example, it gives you a high, low, median, and average before and after adjustments. So those, if you made adjustments, that will change slightly. Next, it gives a sentence that says, hey, this is what I think your house will be, should list at. You have to type in a price range if you want this to show up. So if I feel that this house will sell somewhere between $375 and $400, I would type 375 and 400,000. I like to make it look nice with commas and spaces and dollar signs. And that is going to append this to the end of the sentence, or you could type your own sentence there. The other piece we have are notes. So you, if you wanted, down here, could add notes. I like to just recommend that you put a blank line. So in that box, just hit return. So there's a blank line. Otherwise, it smushes it up to the suggested price, and it makes it a little bit hard to read. Okay, and then we've got finish. And that is going to put it all together. Now keep in mind that it did save this as we were going through. We did not have to click the save button. It is automatic. And if it makes you feel better and you want to hit the save button, we do have one right here, but just know that it does save it as soon as you start building it. So it gives us a little summary, tells us what we're using, the different pages, what comps we've used. Again, that you need to save it. Actually, no, it just tells you here you need Adobe Reader. And it shows us our picture. So now it is building that. Again, it downloaded it to my download arrow here at the top into Adobe. And here we have our finished report. Now this was an old picture, so the resolution is smaller, which is why it looks so little in this layout. I would recommend, if you have time, drive by that property, snap a new photo, make it look real nice and professional. We've got it created for 600 Crestview. Here's our customer, and I can scroll through these different reports. Here's that pricing recommendation. I mentioned if you added the price, it would append it to the end of the sentence, and there it is. I said it would list between we should list between 375 and 400. And if you enter notes, had I not put that extra return in, that would have been smushed up against the price. I do like the fact that it does separate it a little bit when you put that extra return in. And as we go through this report, there's your 3-up comparison, but your subject property is first this time instead of just the comps, like we saw on the typical 3-up in MLS. So now you can quickly and easily compare your listing, your property, with the comps that came up. And then the last two were the tax comps, and it tells you that right here. There's your map. These are those static reports. So these are fairly typical of what we've had in the industry for quite some time, and it just gives you a nice little summaries of information. I think it is important to share with your sellers. You know, look, you're going to get a bunch of activity in the beginning, and then it tends to wane over time. So we're not going to have tons of activity, most likely through the whole life of the listing. We give you a guarantee. This might not be what you're going to guarantee, but you have an option to make your own report and upload that. Or if you like that one, great, use it. And I would recommend that you print these layouts and read through them and see what makes sense and what you want to use and share with your sellers. But just real quick, ones that I like, using the benefits of using a realtor. They often wonder, you know, if you just gave me all the information, why do I need to list with you? Well, here's some really good reasons why. And here's what I'm going to do for you. We've got an explanation of this market analysis. Again, something you may or may not want to use. Why you should price well. Why it's good to set the price so everybody's happy. Why you should not overprice it and what can happen there. And then this one I think is great. I think a lot of consumers out there assume that you get 100% of that commission. And this is a nice graphical analysis of where does that money go. Now, this might not be representing exactly what you get, but it is important to show that you get some, your broker gets some, the other agent gets some, and his broker gets some. So when they see that bottom line number, you're not getting all of that. And I think that's important to share with that seller. I also like this one, steps to a positive showing. You know, some people just don't understand that they need to clean up and tidy up their house and get rid of the clutter and make sure the yard looks nice, because first impressions are important. So that might be a nice little easy way to bring that subject up with your seller. And then why you need to be flexible, what you should think about when you're showing your property. So that's another good tool to share with your customers. All right, so that was our 19-page report that I only had a couple of listings and I used just a handful of those other reports. So if I wanted to, I could come back and email that to my customer with the email button, and it will send that right off to them. I'd like to just show you a couple pieces in closing. Under My Matrix, you've got a list of my CMAs. So that's going to show you all the CMAs you created. Here's the one I just did, 600 Cressroot. Remember back at the beginning, I had said, put the address in that description, because then it'll show it in the column versus the name, because that's already included. So now we've got the contact's name and the address that they're selling. If you ever needed to get back into it, you can click it here and choose to either edit, view, email, or delete that property, that CMA. So easy, you know, if you presented to them, but you didn't leave them the packet, and then they decided to go with you as the listing agent, now you can email it to them. The other place it's located is My Matrix Contacts. And under My Matrix Contacts, if we scroll down and find that customer and click on their name, there you've got the CMA, and again, the same options. Edit, I'm sorry, if I click on the CMA, you've got the same options here. Edit, view, email, or delete the CMA. And then just as a quick overview, under My Matrix settings, you have options in here for a CMA cover sheet. And that is going to let you type in your information and add a photo for that cover page. So double check that when you have a minute. Make sure your cover sheet's set up. My Matrix settings, and then CMA cover sheet. And please remember, they're going to just stay out here for 6 months. If you need a copy of this, check mark it, view it, and print it, or save it as a PDF so you've got a hard copy or a stored copy on your computer down the road, because they will purge out of the system. All right, so just in summary, we first went to search public record and looked up that address to make sure that we had all the properties information, such as when did it sell last, bedrooms, bathrooms, style, square footage, things like that. And we got that estimated valuation that it shared with us. And then we ran a search with search residential, and we used the map search here in the middle. And with those results, we worked with the quick CMA and the regular CMA wizard. And when we checked those handful of properties and went to print, we had the option to use the one line and the 3 up together to give our customer a nice little package. Okay, questions? Feel free to enter those in the chat. Otherwise, this recording will probably be posted tomorrow. We'll get that up again. That's under help. And it is in the Yes MLS webinars section. So we'll have that available under CMA Tips. Can you add a zip code field in the MLS? Actually, to search by, Yana, if you wanted to search, we've got it here under zip code. You could type any zip code right there. It's also down here at the bottom. I think that's probably the better one to use under school district. So you certainly can put a zip code and separate them by commas if you want to use more than one. We are posting the webinars that we have. If you did not sign up for a webinar, we try to have them posted on the homepage shortly before. We're doing some each day. So sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon, and we give you the quick link to access those webinars if you didn't get it in an email. And then we did post down here the schedule for the next couple weeks. We're actually talking about, in our department, we're talking about just some other subject matter that we'd like to cover for you. But if you have something that you think makes sense, send us an email to help@yes-mls.com. That's HELP@yes-mls.com. If you'd like some other topics covered, we're happy to hear suggestions. We might have to add those to other webinars so we have enough content to cover, but otherwise, that's the goal there, is to get you information on a kind of short little 30, mine's 40 minutes today, but 30 to 40 minute webinars, and get you rolling in the MLS. I can do a net sheet. I'm happy to do it. It just, please take some notes on this one because it can be a little confusing. We use the one under external links here, estimated seller's net sheet. The one up here at the top under finance does not have any data filled in. So let's go to estimated seller's net sheet here. Now it's fairly straightforward at the top. You know, you're going to fill in your name, your company, and some information, customer, your address. It's important to choose your city, or your county rather, because it's going to do some transfer tax and things like that. You're going to pick your estimated closing date. So let's go ahead and choose, we'll use May 15th, and it will automatically calculate your taxes paid through. Please don't change that. That taxes paid through is going to do the proration, so leave that alone. It knows how much you've paid and will calculate what you still owe. With the sales price, you can enter up to 3 different prices. Remember what your highest price is, because you'll need that later. So if we'll do $375, we'll do $400, and we'll do $425. So just keep in mind, $425 is my highest price. I'm going to need that number later. I think we said taxes were around $82.17. It does the proration for you here based on your closing date. So that is important. Don't adjust this date and let it do the proration for you. Here's the hard part. And I like to tell everybody, don't do math here. This math, the system will do for you automatically. It's looking for where your commission breaks are. So let's say you're doing a 7-5 split, 7% on the first 100, 5% on the balance. So it's $100,000 at 7%. That's easy. This next one, you want to put in your highest sales price. It knows to stop the 7% after 100,000, and after 100 and up to this next number, it is going to do whatever I put in this box. So I always tell people, put your highest number there at your next percentage break. If you do any math here, because a lot of people want to change this and make it $325, you just shorted yourself $100,000 at 5% commission. Don't do the math. It's $100,000 at 7 and your highest sales price at 5. If you have a third commission break, you would finish this off. It might be $500,000 at 5% and $1 million at 2%. We don't have those a whole lot. So it's 7% at 100. Anything over 100 up to 425, because that's my highest sales price here, is going to be at 5%. Now, we tell you, we show here, listing broker will get 50%, selling broker will get 50%. If I hit calculate, it's just going to split that total commission in 2. I like to make it easy for my sellers. I want to make it 100%. The listing broker gets 100%. That broker determines how to disseminate that money. And he's probably put that in the MLS. But if I put 100%, that makes it very easy for my seller to understand what commission they are paying. And they're not going to be confused that they only had to pay half of that. So I like to change that listing broker to 100% and then choose calculate. You don't have to. It's just a little tip I like to throw out there. Always hit calculate here. Anytime you see a calculate button, click it. Click it twice if you can't remember if you did or not. Then as you are scrolling through, it's going to give you some other figures. It does the conveyance fee based on the county that you picked, and then based on the prices. It does a title policy based on the prices that you entered up above. These next values are things that you can change. So if you're not offering a home warranty, you can change that to 0. or just leave it blank. If your water sewer holdback is different, maybe it's $375, you can change that. If your company charges other fees, maybe it's a broker commission, you can enter that value. If you wanted to show that what their mortgage was, that they have a balance on, maybe they owe $23,000 in the rest of their mortgage. At the bottom here, you have to hit calculate again in order for all of those changes to be taken into consideration. Always, always hit calculate before you hit print, because if you've made changes and you don't, it doesn't do the calculation and you're going to shortchange yourself. So across the bottom, it gives you the values that it came up with based on the different prices and the different fees. And when you're ready, you click print pages, and it's going to save it as a PDF. Again, this doesn't want to cooperate. There's a box somewhere that I can't see. Oh, now I've frozen my computer. At any rate, you get the idea there. That will save it as a PDF, and then you can open that and share that with your customer. All right, questions on that net sheet. That one people get a little flustered with. I would say use caution. If you've got a title company that creates it, compare theirs with yours and make sure they're similar. And before you start handing those out, just check and double check them. I think it's important to know that you did them right. So let's see if I can find that. All right, any other questions? If not, I'll just hang out here for another couple minutes, but if not, thank you very much for joining us on this webinar, and we hope to see you the next time.